So, how old are you when you first saw Teletext? Not maybe work on it, maybe saw it at home, maybe saw it at a relative's house.
Oh, well, the awareness of it, I guess, was when I'd sort of take days of school, and it would kind of sometimes be on TV, you know, when it would be rolling. CFAX would, you know, on BBC Two with the music. So that was sort of, I don't know how old I would have been, 10, 11, but I mean, the first time I really kind of became properly aware of it, I would have been 15, 16, and Oracle's Buzz sections, which were the teenage pages, that was when I first started engaging with it. And I remember we would, they used to have a letters page, but you would ring up and leave a message on their voicemail, and then they'd print your voicemail. It was all seemed very high tech at the time, you know, this was pre-email. And I remember doing that and getting a couple of letters printed on there, or voicemails printed on there as they were, and being quite thrilled. So that was the first thing I ever had on Teletext, was probably about the age of 16 or 17, was getting voicemails printed on Buzz, the Oracle's teen pages.
Did you work in the media industry before you got into Teletext?
Well, I worked for Ladbrokes Racing, and they had Teletext pages. That was the first job I had straight out of school, was working for Ladbrokes as a graphic designer, and doing the kind of pages that, you know, there's lots of pictures of horses, and, you know, nothing much more exciting than that. And then from that, I went to work for Wembley Stadium. So it was again working in small pixels, really, or actually quite large pixels, doing graphics for the scoreboard at Wembley Stadium. So I don't know if either of them class as working in the media, but I was something of an expert with chunky pixels before I kind of, you know, kind of work at Teletext.
And on Teletext itself, what pages do you remember existing? Did you ever visit certain pages?
I don't remember page numbers, but the pages I looked at, I was Buzz. I was a big fan of 40 the dog on Foretel. I don't know what page number that was. 400, 401, 499, something like that. Barney's Bunch, another cartoon strip that was that I really liked. They were the main ones, and I don't remember ever looking at sort of video games pages, which is obviously what I eventually ended up doing. But yeah, they were the ones. The teen pages, the voicemail thing, 40 the dog, and Barney's Bunch, because I like the graphics.
And what made you move into Teletext specifically?
Well, it was the job I got at Ladbrokes. It was actually, it started out doing graphics for their in-store betting system, which actually was slightly higher resolution than Teletext. It was a custom system called LES, or LES as everyone abbreviated it to, which was it was a really strange system, because it was designed specifically for them. So it wasn't just blocks. They sometimes had triangular shapes, like proper triangles. You know, you kind of have half a block, which you obviously can't do on Teletext. So that's what I trained on. And then eventually they said, well, we need some graphics for our Teletext pages as well. So I got trained up on that. So it wasn't really an ambition as such to do that. It was just somehow made a career out of for a while. But I remember when I used to ring up and leave those voicemails at Oracle. That sounds like I was some sort of stalker, but it was a legitimate thing. I remember doing that, thinking this would be a really cool job to have, not thinking that I'd ever actually end up doing it. So, yeah, I forgot what the question was now. I've rambled on.
So at what point you thought you'd be involved in it?
It felt legitimate when I got the job at Teletext. Kind of came about. It was slightly convoluted, but it was someone who'd worked with me at Ladbrokes whose flatmate was working for Teletext, which was about to take over from Oracle, and they were looking for a graphics person, and he said, oh, I used to know someone, or I used to work with someone who was a graphics person. So I got a call out of the blue from Teletext's first editor, a guy called John Holm, who said, and he rang up and he said, hello, my name's John Holm, I understand you're a Teletext graphics whiz. He was a fantastic old school Fleet Street editor, and he'd worked on newspapers, and he had an incredibly sort of rich and fruity voice. He was an extraordinary character. He used to chain smoke his office. You go into his office and it was always full of smoke. I loved him to bits. He was a really smashing bloke. So yeah, that was when it happened. It was a job, really. I didn't have any career plans at the time. I thought, I'll do graphic design, and somehow ended up specialising in very low resolution graphic design that was about to become extinct.
It's quite a limited teletext graphics. So I had to go on a recent editor, edits.tf.
Oh yeah, she's great.
Love that. I love art. I love music. I'm not really a game designer, but I'm very much into drawing stuff and music. Is the way that you created pages back in the 90s the same way you do it nowadays?
It's very similar, to be honest, and it took me a while when I first started playing with Edit TF. It was a while, it wasn't like riding a bike where you kind of, you can not do it for 10 years and then get back on one, you know exactly what you're doing. I was really rusty. It really took a while for it to sort of download the information that used to be in my head, but they're very similar. We used to do it on PCs, I think, and it was a custom software. WinSprite was that? I don't know whether that was the graphics editing software or the modem that I used to use to log in from home. But it's not a million miles away.
And do you think making a page is something anyone could do?
Theoretically, it's teletext. I liken it to, it's a mixture between Lego, in that you're using blocks, and sculpture, because the way I use it, I'll do big kind of chunky blocks of colour across a screen in the rough outline of what it is that I'm trying to draw. So that's almost like having a big sort of lump of clay or granite or something, and then I'll go in and then put the detail in by removing pixels to make the shapes, which feels like to me like sculpting. And that's anything anyone can do. I mean, whether anyone can be good at it is another thing. But yeah, it's accessible and easy, I think, for anyone to have a go at.
And do you have a favourite teletext piece? Ooh. Or a favourite page that you made or saw? Maybe not what you did, but maybe what you saw one.
Yes, the teletext page that really stands out was the comic strip Barney's Bunch, which featured a badger character. And I really thought it was clever the way it used the black of a teletext background as part of the badger's colour. And that really stuck with me when I kind of moved into teletext design. I used a lot of blacks, big, bold black outlines. Whereas a lot of teletext artists kind of before me would often use a lot of sort of hold colour, which would give you a sort of solid colour background, which you could put colour directly on top of. But I like the boldness of giving characters or designs an outline, and that I think came from Barney's Bunch. It was really bold. And 40 the Dog, which by Ian Irving, or Swerve as he called himself, I think, he had a completely opposite type of design style to me, but it was very minimalist and very sort of angular, and really clever the way he used the sort of space to lay out the comic strip as he drew it. So yeah, both of those huge influences on me. Chatting
to Horsenberger, and he brought up the Draw It page where people send in pictures.
Oh yeah.
And they would be scanned in, which to me is not the original artwork. That's someone recreating someone else's picture.
Yeah.
How did that? What happened with that? Was it really as simple as someone sent a picture in and you just redrew it and scan it?
It was literally that. We didn't have a scanner. I think they did get us a scanner at one point, but it never really worked. You'd put the artwork under there, and the picture that you would end up with was so damaged and so different to what they'd sent in anyway. You ended up more or less having to redraw it as it was. So yeah, it was as simple as that. It was, we'd copy some kid's terrible picture.
You've made a lot of art in the past on Teletext. Do you make art currently in any other form today?
I don't, in terms of sort of, I guess, what people think of as art, which is, perhaps pens and paper and pencils. And I miss it, to be honest. I used to paint all the time. I mean, now, I make stupid things on YouTube, which I suppose in its own way is a kind of art. I see it using a lot of the same sort of parts of my brain, editing and the like. It's just in 3D now rather than with teletext pixels.
What do you think of when someone says 80s computer games?
Ultimate play the game, without a doubt. They just, what they did on the Spectrum, it just defined the 80s for me.
Are you thinking Night Law or a Tic Tac? Or?
Do you know, actually, what I really think of is the logo. That gorgeous chrome airbrush logo that looked like nothing else, with the greens in the background. It was just beautiful. And it, again, their art style was a huge influence on me, particularly with Teletext, because of the way they used the blacks again. It was really clever. So So yeah, Ultimate. Yeah, they were big for me.
Talk to me about 80s cartoons. Best ones?
Oh, Ulysses 31?
Yeah.
Is it 31?
31.
Yeah, that was... and that purely for the soundtrack or the opening titles. Man, that song's good.
It's a good 2.5 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
What's your favourite 80s song lyric?
Well, I'm a huge Marillion fan. So, and they're still going. Then I don't see them as an 80s band, but they started in the 80s. So I'm going to pick one of theirs. Wow, I'm going to have to pick one of theirs, but I can't think of one now. You put me on the spot. Huddled in the safety of a pseudo-silk kimono, a morning mare rides. There you go. The opening words of Misplaced Childhood.
Cool. And then what was your favourite lesson at school?
Oh, art, without a doubt. Yeah. Couldn't do maths. English was okay as long as it wasn't having to do grammar and, spelling and stuff, ironically, which is, end up being a journalist. But yeah, art. Even though I sometimes found art quite restrictive because I just wanted to draw stuff from my imagination, not, kind of go and draw the corridor or, draw a bush or something. I wanted to draw monsters and stuff like that. But which I usually would do. I mean, my art O-level, because I'm old enough to have done O-levels, we had to draw a study of a tree, and I did this study of a bunch of trees with a load of druids hanging around in the shadows. I got a B, so, they didn't fail me for it.